Welcome to the Law School Strategy Podcast, your weekly home for tips, advice, exclusive interviews, and other insights into landing that coveted legal job by graduation. We're here to help every law student develop their law school strategy. Don't go through law school blind. It's time to get out of the classroom, put your books down, and finish that outline later. Now, here's your host, Franklin Graves.
Welcome to another episode of Law School Strategy. This episode, we're going to focus specifically on the bar exam. So you might be in the midst of the bar exam. If you are, not really sure why you're listening to this, but if you are, I appreciate you taking some of your free time off to listen. I hope that this will inspire you and help you get back right into studying and feel energized about it. In this episode, we're going to be kind of highlighting a couple of different people. The first person I'll be talking with is Sam Farkas. He works for BarBRI, and he will kind of talk through some of the questions that a lot of people probably will be having. And then next, I'll kind of highlight and replay some of the law school strategy interviews I did with practicing attorneys where they talk about the bar exam and share some tips and insights. One in particular deals with what do you do when you fail the bar exam. So if you're retaking the test right now, or if you're worried about failing, kind of listen in and take some notes and kind of learn from what this attorney, who's very successful now, has to share about the bar exam. So first up, we're going to interview Sam Farkas from BarBRI. Hi, Sam. Welcome to Law School Strategy. Thanks for joining us. Now, what does your role with BarBRI entail, and what is your title?
So I am a BarBRI instructor, and I'm also one of the lead curriculum architects, curriculum developers here at BarBRI. And I work on our bar review content, and I also work with our institutional programs department, building law school curriculum and teaching that curriculum in law schools. So I spend a lot of my time putting together actual curriculum for our law school partners, helping law school students during their legal education develop the critical skills necessary to not only do well in law school and on the bar exam, but also in their practice. So I work with law school students all the way from their very first semester to their very last semester, doing all kinds of different courses that we've built at BarBRI. I also spend a lot of my time developing bar review content. So new lectures, some of which you may have seen when you took BarBRI. And I specialize in the MBE. So I do a lot with our MBE stuff, helping to develop new programs and such for that.
Yes, and I definitely remember you from back when I did BarBRI in July of 2014.
And you passed. So, congrats. Yes. There you go.
Yes, I passed the first time. So yes, that was an amazing accomplishment, and thanks to BarBRI for that.
Awesome.
Not to make this too salesy, obviously. But so one of the things that a lot of law students or recent grads right now might be struggling with, and a common problem a lot of bar prep students deal with, is the stress aspect and also the lack of confidence during this time. We're in the middle of June currently as we're recording, but other people might be watching this when they're in the midst of bar prep. But what advice would you give to students that are feeling like that right now? Is it normal?
It's a great question, and it is normal to some degree, right? I mean, look, any law school student preparing to take the bar has certainly invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, right? This has been a long journey, and it all comes down to this, so to speak. It comes down to this licensing test. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the line. So it's, of course, a stressful event. It's also a hard test, right? So, students are going to feel that. Anyone preparing to take it is going to feel it. So to answer your question, I think absolutely it's natural to feel some stress, to feel the nerves, to have those feelings. Having said that, there's nothing more important than developing confidence. It's so important to your success. I firmly believe that you can't accomplish anything if you don't believe that you can do it. So what we do at BarBRI, we have a lot of inspiration layered throughout our course, because we know that depending on the minute, depending on the day, depending on the week, you could be really facing a strong sense of, just being overwhelmed or feeling like, are you really going to be able to do this? So we know that, and we have tools in place to help reassure you, to help give you a sense of, inspiration, a kick when you need it, because it's totally natural.
Yes. And so if somebody is not taking BarBRI course right now, what is one thing you would share with them? Because they don't have access to those resources. What's one thing that you can recommend as a way to maybe combat this without having to watch another video or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question too. So I really think that keeping the big picture in mind is really important. One of the things that I see bar review students, it's easy to do, I see this happen a lot, is you get kind of lost in the forest. You have all of these nuances and details coming at you fast and furious, and you forget that at the end of the day, this is a minimum competency test, and you just have to get enough points to pass it. So what I would remind students of is, if you've done your due diligence and you've purchased a course like BarBRI, we've given you all the tools and resources that you need to be successful. So just put one foot in front of the other, take a deep breath, and you're going to be okay. You're going to get there.
So somebody might think, hey, I can maybe take a week off to kind of calm down some. Why or why not should somebody take an entire week off right now in the middle of bar prep?
Okay, so that is so I would say it's not necessarily advisable to take a whole week off during bar review. There are certainly circumstances that would require you to do that. And if that's, the circumstances you're dealing with, then, I would say reach out to us at BarBRI or reach out to an expert to help you kind of figure out how to get back on track. But I would say it's not advisable to take a whole week. And that's a lot of time. I think it also depends on, are you asking a whole week with no work or a week where you just kind of pull it back a little bit, catch your breath, but you're still doing some work? Because that could be different as well. The better option, I think, for most students is to find opportunities during their study where they can take a break, maybe not as long as a week, but they can take that break that they need to refuel, because that's critical. It's critical during bar. We've all heard it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? You have to take some time to just get out of bar review for a bit, go see a movie, hang out with your friends, right? Spend some time with your significant other, whatever. But you got to do that. So I would say find those opportunities throughout your study. Maybe not make it a whole week, but and even if it's just a stroll through the park for an hour during the day, just to give yourself a little pause time to regroup and refresh.
Definitely. I know for some students that might be spending time on Twitter or Reddit. I know that one of my friends, virtual friends, I've actually never met him before, he was tweeting earlier yesterday actually about how he was just feeling overwhelmed. He was failing all these essays and getting back horrible feedback. And I just tweeted at him, I reminded him, hey, that's exactly what I had happen with BarBRI. Like, I don't think I passed a single one of the essays leading up to it. And I think that's part of the program. Like, you have to build yourself up, but you have to break yourself down first to build back up. And as long as you're learning from each one of those mistakes that you're making and reading the model answers for the essays, that kind of thing, you're gonna be okay, I think. So
precisely what you said. I couldn't have said it better myself. I tell students. In fact, I was talking with a student today, and they were really freaked out because they missed a fine little issue in an essay question, and they were starting to freak out and have this moment of, well, if I missed this, what other things could I be missing, and how am I going to avoid missing it in the future? And what I did was just kind of say, stop. Like, I want you to do a happy dance right now, because you in this moment figured out something that you didn't know a minute ago. And that's really, really important. And the whole point of doing all the work you're doing in bar review is to have a lot of those mini aha moments, so that by the time you get to the bar exam, you've had enough of them, you're going to pass it, right? So you have to rejoice when you get a bad grade on an essay. It's important that you also take the time, as you suggested, to reflect and figure out what you can do to make the necessary improvements, the adjustments to improve your score. But there's nothing wrong with getting feedback in bar review that you're not where you want to be, because if you were where you wanted to be on day one, then you wouldn't need to study, right? So we know that's not going to be the case. And all those moments throughout where you have opportunities to get better and to learn, those are good moments.
Okay, so you just mentioned somebody might be thinking, hey, I'm where I need to be, I'm fine, I don't need a bar prep program. So that leads perfectly into my next question of, is it too late for somebody to either sign up for BarBRI, for instance, or if they've gotten off track, if they signed up for BarBRI or whatever, if they've gotten off track, is it too late in the game right now to kind of get back into it and still feel confident going into the exam?
So answer is no, it's not too late, but I would say time is of the essence, right? Time is of the essence. Every day matters in bar review because you're covering so much ground. You have so much work that you really need to kind of get under your belt. So time is very important. If you haven't signed up yet, you need to do so right now, like right now. leave this, watching this, and go sign up for BarBRI because it's really important. And if you're finding yourself getting behind, then BarBRI is here to help you. We've got people, you can reach out to us. We will help you chart a course to get back on track because it happens, right? Life happens also when you're studying for the bar exam. So if you do get behind, don't panic, don't freak out, and don't despair. Just reach out to us. We'll help you get back on track.
Thank you so much. Is there any last piece of advice that you'd like to share with current students in a bar prep program?
Yeah, so one piece of advice, and this is because I work with students a lot, is to focus on making sure you're getting the work that's assigned to you done, particularly the practice questions and the practice essays. I encounter a number of students every single year that say they didn't really do that many practice questions because they never felt quite confident in their knowledge of the law. So they kept putting off doing practice questions, and they kept, selecting or, more review of their lecture notes or rewatching of lectures. And I say that's a mistake, because the real way that you improve your performance on essays and multiple choice questions is getting in the game and doing practice questions. So I compare it often to people at the gym. I used to work in fitness, and people would say to me, well, I'll come to you when I lose some weight. And I would be like, that's really doesn't make very much sense. You need to come to me to lose weight. So the same thing applies here to, I think, to success on the bar exam. And that is, start doing practice to get better, to learn. Don't put it off. You're never going to have a feeling where you go, I know everything there is to know about torts. I now will begin practicing questions. All right, that feeling's not going to happen to you probably. So start working questions. And the other thing is what we've been talking about, and that's just to keep your eye on the big picture. Yes, a little bit of stress is good. It's fuel that will motivate you and keep you focused throughout your study. Don't let yourself become overwhelmed and sink into a hole where you can't really get yourself out of it or keep yourself motivated. So I would say stay motivated by remembering minimum competency. You can do this if you follow what we tell you to do and you stay up with the work and do practice, practice, practice.
That's so true. And I think I remember the fire that I had in me. It didn't come about until July. And people that listen to me regularly know that I got one of my job offers came during studying for BarBRI. Actually, I was sitting in a BarBRI lecture, and on LinkedIn, a recruiter messaged me for an interview. And I was like, I gave this up because of BarBRI. But one of the things that was the fire in my belly that I was kind of like, just the anger that propelled me forward was like the fact that everything on the bar exam, or most of the stuff on the bar exam, there was no IP, none of that. And I knew that the job that I was going to start after the bar was all predominantly IP and corporate law, and most of that was not on the bar exam. So that was a little fire inside of me that was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong. Even though I might not be using all of this material in my practice, or vast majority of it, I'm still going to kick butt on the exam and do my best. And that was the fire. So I like what you said about getting something that the stress that pushes you forward.
That's right.
I think is very
That's
powerful.
Right. And demonstrate your chops, right, as a lawyer, because this is, after all, a lawyering test, right? So you want to show the world, and certainly your future employer, that you have the chops to do it. And the one thing I would add to a big epiphany I had when I was a student studying for the bar is I felt for the first time like I was actually kind of a lawyer, because I don't know how you felt after law school, but we all sort of get through law school and we took our individual subjects, right? We took torts, we took bankruptcy, we took copyright, whatever subjects we took in law school. And you never really put it all together into one big framework. You never really saw how all the subjects connect together and work to resolve legal problems. So it wasn't until bar review that things all started coming together for me, and I could see the big picture of the law. And I finally began to see myself, or think of myself, as an attorney, because I was solving lawyer problems using all of my knowledge that I had gained. So I think it's a really cool part of the educational process, if you will. Most law school students, if you just get the right attitude about it, will feel like, wow, I'm really learning so much, and I really know a lot too, which is reaffirming.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to share this information. I know it's going to help a lot of current bar prep students, as well as future bar prep students, current law students that are looking forward to the bar exam, whether dreadfully or for whatever reason excitedly. But what's the best way for somebody to reach out? If they want to get in touch, can they get in touch with you directly, or a way they can reach out to BarBRI if they're not currently communicating with a BarBRI rep?
Sure. Well, so if you're in law school, you have a director of legal education, a DLE that you probably know. You can reach out to them. If you're not sure who that person is, log on to the BarBRI website. You can navigate to your state, and you'll be able to find that person right there. Also on our BarBRI website, we've got our toll-free number you can call as well.
Excellent. And your social media account is very active, so just at BarBRI on Twitter.
That's right. Or tweet us. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's how I commonly interact with you anyways. So.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So adding to what Sam was sharing, I would like to just tell you, if you're finding it hard to study, just study everywhere. Get an app for your iPhone with the MBE questions, and you can use that when you're sitting and waiting at the doctor's office for car repairs or the dentist or in the grocery line checkout. Just having the app on your phone makes it super easy to just pull it out and answer a couple questions, even if it's just one or two. I found that extremely helpful to have right in my pocket, always available to me. Another issue that I kind of encountered and had to overcome studying for the bar exam was participating and being a part of a couple weddings. What I basically did was camped out at a local Starbucks wherever the wedding was taking place, and I didn't really participate in it. I really only showed up to the rehearsal dinner or to the actual wedding event itself. And it's kind of because you have to make that choice, and it's right now just the start of June, so it's not too late to keep going and finish strong and not let distractions happen. And when distractions do happen, when life happens during the bar exam, just remember to focus on studying as much as possible. Here's another interview that I did, one of my first, actually from the first episode of Law School Strategy. And I think that this California attorney will have some interesting insights to share with you about the bar exam.
When I was studying for the bar, somebody told me that the people who score the bar get a stack of essays. And at the beginning of the week, they have to do 1,000 essays. And that means that they have to do, so many every day, which means so many every hour. And then maybe they'll watch something on TV and they're like, that's okay. I have a few less that I can do each day. That's okay. Or a few more that I have to do. I can still make it. So that by the end of the week, they're giving you maybe 30 seconds for that essay that you have just written. And if it is not extremely obvious what you're trying to say, and if you haven't helped them out as much as possible by making things bold and underlining them, then you're just not even going to get a second glance. So even if you have all the information in there, it's not going to get seen. And that to me was the best advice that I got before I took the bar. And I really took that to heart. So beware of using bold, underline, and italic just to make everything important, because if everything's important, then absolutely nothing is. So be judicious, but help the people out, because the people who score the essay portion of the bar are really going to be scanning very quickly to see keywords, to see key topics pulled out for them. So the more that you can do their work for them, the happier they will be with you. And at this point, I don't know how many states still do essay bars, because I keep hearing more and more that everybody's going multi-state. But for the essay portions that are still out there, that is one of the pieces of advice for the bar that made the best impact on me.
Perfect. Thank you. That's definitely insightful. So I remember I used Command B and Command that kind of stuff to make sure I was bolding and underlining and italicizing stuff quickly, not wasting time on that. So excellent points. In this next interview, Francine Ward opens up about her experiences of not only failing the New York and California bars once, but multiple times. I want you to listen to her story, and which most attorneys actually don't want to share, and take notes about how she approaches the bar exam differently and grows through her process of discovering how she best studies and prepares. I hope that it serves to enlighten you, and that's exactly what Francine does to me. She is an inspiring woman. So listen to Francine. So that was after you were taking the New York bar, you made the connections through mutual friends and your circles you had, basically. And then at that point, you're able to take the lessons you had learned previously, and then that helped propel you to be ready, essentially, for this next position, this firm job. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. And let me step back. You mentioned, about taking the New York bar. I know a lot of lawyers don't talk about it, but I am very willing to talk about part of the struggle for me was that I had failed the bar. You know, I am now admitted to 3 bars, the most difficult in the country, New York and California, and I'm admitted to the DC bar. New York is my first. I have been practicing for 26 years. It was January 1991 when I was admitted to the New York bar.
You'll never forget that date, will you?
Well, I sure will not. Believe me. Well, number one, it's 2 days before my birthday. Yesterday was my birthday. So I was admitted.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was admitted to the bar 2 days before my birthday, so I won't forget it. But I also won't forget it because John F. Kennedy Jr. and I failed the bar at the same time twice, and we passed on the same day. We were confirmed on the same day, and we went before, well, we were confirmed on the same day. And we also went before the character committee on the same day. So it stands out.
That's amazing.
Oh, for sure. The only problem is his poor face was splattered all over the New York Times and the Daily News. Mine wasn't.
Well, I think it still is, along with there is a whole listing. I think it's BuzzFeed actually, who has a complete listing of celebrities or well-known individuals, public figures that have failed the bar at least once or twice or sometimes 3 times. And I think every single law student is looking at that just for some type of comfort as they're going through the bar exam process, because it's such a grueling and intense process. So.
Well, let me give them a little bit more comfort. So I failed the New York bar twice, and I passed on my 3rd try. And so I was admitted in 91. California, now one would have thought, having failed the exam, New York, I would know how to take a test. Well, I ended up, and I'm just telling you right now, I stopped counting how many times I failed the California bar at 6. I stopped counting. So I don't even know how many times I actually failed it, but what I do know, and this is what I want to say to anyone who's listening to this, who's maybe failed the exam once or twice or more, and is really feeling what one would rightfully feel when that happens. I mean, I can't even describe it. Only if you've gone through it, you know the feeling of dejection. You know the feeling of feeling like somebody's just ripped something from your insides, and you feel like the worst day of your life, and you feel like a piece of garbage. You know, that's the bottom line. I can say this, it's not the end of the world. You will not die. But I know for myself what I had to do after failing the bar. I had to stop and reassess my situation, because I kept going back to the empty well, and I was studying. I mean, I was already a lawyer by that time. I'd gone through the New York bar. I was already practicing law. But what I discovered is you really, the more you fail, or the more you get beat down, the more there's a piece of you that's missing. Your mind is not really focused on, your mind is too focused on passing rather than focusing on the little details of what you need to do to pass. And so I was so busy focused on just the substantive law. And the reality is, when I finally passed California, I had created a plan. And I had actually stepped back for like 6 months and cleared my plate, which was one of the big things I had to do. I planned it out for 6 months, but what I put into that plan was not just redoing this, reading the substantive material again, doing essays. In California, I didn't have to take the MBA because I was already a lawyer, so I had to take 2 days instead of 3. Not just reviewing my essays, but I also had to add something that focused on my mind and my emotions and my physical condition. I had to place on my schedule exercise. I had to, at that time, The Secret was big, and so I put on my calendar every Saturday before I was working through my practicals, I put in Listen to The Secret. I did meditation, but I added that into the mix, which, is an interesting thing to say, but it's what worked for me because I was so intent on passing. I was so tense. I needed to calm down because I realized when I was in the test, the times I failed it, what would happen is every time I got to a question and I felt stumped, I would sit there and sit there and sit there. And before I knew it, the hour allotted for that essay was gone, and here I was, you know. And you know, I mean, it's timed, and if you miss that, then you've already missed a good portion. So what I did this time was, because of the meditation and the, you know, the emotional massaging, if you will, of myself, what I did is, whenever I got to a place where I felt stumped, I just pushed through it. I just did a quick, you know, okay, Francine, you know this, you've done it, you've gone over it over and over again, move on. And I was able to get through it by focusing on that as well, because I knew the work. Like I said, I've already been practicing. I knew the substantive material. I needed to calm myself down when I was freaking out. So I say to you, you know, if somebody that's listening, you know, I'd be happy to talk to someone if they're struggling through that, if they need to be reminded of what to do. And it's not the end of the world. You will get through it. You just have to maybe step back and reassess where you are.
Yeah, speaking to that kind of, I think I did BarBRI. That was one of the resources available to me when I graduated. And so I utilized that. And I remember specifically they had a mental health like videos that you could watch, and like everything about overcoming the mental challenges of like what you just described, of like calming yourself and prepping your mind going into it, because that's such a huge aspect of it. So I don't want this to turn into a BarBRI ad, because I don't get any support from them. But I was just going to ask you, I'm sure people listening would wonder, what were some of the steps that you had taken to prepare for the bar? Did you do a bar review program? Did you do it on your own, self-paced? What would that look like for you?
So because I had taken the exam many, many times, I had invested tons, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on courses. Sure. Not necessarily BarBRI, but many, many, many courses. So what I did, finally, I realized I already knew the substantive material, and I had books. I already had the books, you know. So what I needed to do is reassess the way I was approaching my study. So like I said, the very first thing I had to do, because I was busy working, I was, you know, traveling around the country doing motivational talks, I had to really give myself an allotment of time where I was only focused on the bar. So what I did was cleared my calendar. I remember I decided to take the July exam that year, and I cleared my calendar from January until July. And then I got a calendar. Literally, I got a calendar, and I planned it out literally every day. So I gave myself like a month and a half to kind of just breeze through the substantive content. And so that's what I did. Like, it might have been 3 days reading the material for contracts, 4 days for property, whatever it was. I fit all of, I think we had 13 or 14 courses, because California has its own as well. So I put everything on the calendar, And then the rest of the time, what I did, I allotted, I think it was maybe 4 months or 3, I don't know, whatever it was. I then put down how many days I was going to work on my essays. I focused on essays during the week, and on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, I did 2 practicals a day. And practicals are 3 hours each. So what I did, like the first week after I read my substantive material, I allotted, let's say, and I can't remember exactly right now, but this is generally the way I did it. I had the list of the subjects, and let's say I allotted, well, actually, I probably did it for a whole week, because I gave myself plenty of time. So let's say that first week, I did nothing but essays on contracts. That's all I did. And I might have done maybe 3 or 4 or 5, but nothing but essays on that day. And then what I did was I literally reviewed the answers. Even if I got them right, I wanted to review the answers in the book so it could still be reinforced in my brain. So I did the essay, I wrote it out, then I read through the answers, and I did that with, it was maybe 3, 4, or 5 a day. I did that for every single subject. So by the time I was finished with the subjects, I mean, I had gone through every essay I could find anywhere. I used the old books, like the BarBRI, I had all kinds of books I used. And I just used any essay book I could find, and I just did them all. And then the same thing with the practicals. On the weekend, I did 2. and I went through the answers. I mean, by the time I was ready to do this, I was really ready. I was really ready. And then, like I said, I added at the beginning on Saturday, I listened to something positive, like The Secret or something that got me into the right mood. On Sundays, I usually gave myself a massage, got myself a massage. And then what I did differently also is toward the end, I gave myself, I think I was finished with everything about 3 weeks before. So like by the beginning of July, I had been finished. And so then what I did was the next 2 weeks, I just reviewed everything. I just went over essays again. I went over the practicals, even the ones I had done. I just reviewed them so it was still in my brain. I stopped, which was really something I did differently. Instead of studying right up until the moment I went into the test, which was crazy, I stopped. The test was Tuesday and Thursday because I didn't have to take the Wednesday MBE. So on Sunday, I did a massage. Monday, I did nothing. I did no more studying after that. On Tuesday morning, I got there early, really early. Number one, I wanted to make sure I got a parking spot and I didn't feel stressed. I made sure I got there early so I wouldn't be, I wouldn't feel stressed. But what I also did is I didn't allow myself to talk to a lot of people either before, during, or after the exam. Because what I found is that, when you talk about it, somebody is saying something and then I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't do it right. And, really, you might as well take a gun and shoot yourself if you start connecting with people during the exam because you're going to go crazy. So this time I didn't. I just did everything differently. And I was really calm. I'll tell you, that was the key. Because of the mental part and the emotional part, I went in really with a different attitude. I was so much more relaxed. I went and got a seat to myself and, I was able to get through it. But that was my process. I'm a planner. Lots of people plan, some don't. I am a planner. I find even in my work, I plan everything out. I'm very left brain in that regard.
Well, thank you so much for, first of all, sharing that experience and then also being willing to just share the fact that you took so many tries and you just kept at it. And the failure aspect of the bar exam is what most people are so afraid to admit. And it's just thank you for sharing that. I know it'll be very helpful for law students to hear that and for recent grads that are going through that process right now that have failed to hear that and to know that it is possible to just not give up. So.
All right. So that wraps up this episode of Law School Strategy. Thank you for watching and listening. And remember to subscribe on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. And then also do me a favor and share with your friends. It helps to spread the word and maybe somebody else can help learn some tips and tricks about graduating from law school with a job. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Law School Strategy Podcast. Check out lawschoolstrategy.com and make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode of the Law School Strategy Podcast. We're on all podcast apps and on YouTube, so leave a review. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Remember, nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. Please consult with an attorney on any legal issues you may be facing.